In topic 1.4, we're going to learn about polygons and how to find perimeter, circumference, and area. Polygons are basically your 2D shapes, excluding circles. So here you have a diagram of polygons and non-polygons. You'll notice your polygons are made up of lines that connect to form sides. Your non-polygons some of them are open, so they don't close. Some of them have curves. Some consist of 2 shapes and not 1. Right now, we're just going to be practicing naming polygons based on the number of sides. Here on the left, I have the list of names. So if you don't have the names memorized, you can always come to your notes and look at this list once you count the number of sides. So if you look at example A here, picture A has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. So that would be called a hexagon. Figure B has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides. So that's called an octagon. Our next figure has 4 sides. So that's a quadrilateral. You can also call this a rectangle, but generally 4-sided shapes are your quadrilaterals. Not all of them will be rectangles. And our last figure here has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sides, making it a decagon. Next, we're going to talk about perimeter, circumference, and area. Perimeter is just the sum of all your sides, so you would add all your sides together. Circumference is like perimeter, but it's for circles. It's the distance around the outside of the circle. And area is a square units covered by the entire surface. If you don't have your formulas memorized, again, you can come here and look up the formulas once you see what kind of picture you're solving for. So we look at example A. Example A wants us to find the perimeter, circumference, and area of each figure. When we do these problems, we're going to round to the nearest tenth, which means 1 decimal place, and we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So if you look at the first example, I'm going to start by getting the perimeter of this rectangle. Well, I would add all the sides. So if this side's 2.1, the side across from it's also 2.1 centimeters. In a rectangle, if this side's 3.2 centimeters, the side across from it is congruent, so also 3.2 centimeters. So I'm going to sum or add up all my sides. You can use a calculator if you need to for this. So I'm going to add 2.1 plus 3.2 plus 2.1 plus 3.2. That comes out to 10.6. You want to include units. Our units here are centimeters. Next, we're going to find the area. For area of a rectangle, if you don't know the formula, it's here. You would do length times width. So here our length is 2.1 centimeters. And our width is 3.2 centimeters. So I can plug that in for length and width in my formula. So now if I multiply 2.1 times 3.2, that comes out to 6.72. We want to round to the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal. Since 2 is small, I'm going to keep this at 6.7. And the units for area are square units. So instead of centimeters, it's centimeters squared. Our next example is a circle, and we're going to start by finding the circumference. So if you look at your formulas, there's 2 formulas here that you can use. You can either use c equals 2 pi r or c equals pi d. Radius is the letter r, diameter is the letter d. So if they're talking about the radius, they're talking about halfway across the circle. Diameter would be all the way across the circle. So you have to look at what's given to you. So in this example, they gave us halfway, so our radius is 3 inches. So I'm going to use the formula for radius, which is c equals 2 pi r. For pi, I'm going to plug in 3.14, and for the radius, I'm going to plug in 3. Now I can use my calculator. 2 times 3.14 times 3 is going to be 18.84. If I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, or 1 decimal, the 4 is small, so I'm going to keep it 18.8. And my units for this problem are inches. Next, I'm going to find the area. Again, if you don't know the formula, you look it up. The area of a circle is pi r squared. So I'm going to plug in 3.14 for pi. And for my radius, it was, again, 3 inches. 3 squared, or 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm going to do 9 times 3.14. This comes out to 28.26. And if I want 1 decimal place, or the nearest tenth, since the 6 is high, I'm going to round up to 28.3. My units will be inches squared because it's area. Here our next example again is a circle, but this time they gave us the diameter of the circle. So our diameter is 6.2 centimeters. So if we look at our formula, the one for diameter is C equals pi times diameter. So pi, I'm using 3.14. Here my diameter is 6.2. So if I do 3.14 times 6.2, that comes out to 19.468. I want the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal. Since 6 is high, this is going to round up to 19.5 centimeters. Next, we're going to do area. The formula for area is pi r squared. So for area, you need to know your radius. Our radius is halfway. So if the diameter is 6.2, you would just cut that in half, and that gives you 3.1. So our radius is 3.1 centimeters. So that's what I'm going to plug in for r in my formula. So pi is 3.14, radius is 3.1 squared. 3.1 squared is 3.1 times 3.1. That comes out to 9.61. And now I can multiply that times 3.14. This comes out to 30.1754. I want the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal. Since 7 is high, I'm going to round this up to 30.2. And my units are centimeters squared. So remember, area, your units are squared. Our last example here is a triangle. So for perimeter, remember, you're just adding all the sides. So I'm going to add 9.5, 9.5, and 10.2, everything around the triangle. That comes out to 29.2, and my units are inches. Next, I'm going to find the area. Remember, if you don't know your formulas, you want to look them up. So I'm looking up the formula for area of a triangle. And it's right here. It's 1/2 base times height. Your base is your bottom piece here. So our base is 10.2 inches. So I'm going to plug in 10.2. And my height is how high up it is, which is 8 inches. So I'm going to plug in 8 for the height. I would start with half of 10.2, or 10.2 divided by 2, which is 5.1. And then you can multiply 8. That gives me 40.8, which is already to the nearest tenth. And my units are inches squared. So when you're finding perimeter, circumference, and area, if you don't have the formulas memorized, because all this is plugging into formulas, make sure you come back to your notes and look up the formulas so that you can use them.